Welcome back to DIYs with Sonja. If you love high-end home decor but don't want to pay designer prices, you're in the right place. Today, I'm bringing you 30 stunning DIYs to refresh your home for spring and summer, and they're all on a budget. This mega marathon is packed with my favorite elegant and timeless DIY decor projects, inspired by brands like Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel, and McGee and Co. You'll find everything from chic vases and elegant centerpieces to beautiful outdoor DIYs that will elevate your porch, patio, or garden. And the best part, the video is uninterrupted, so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy hours of DIY inspiration while you craft. So grab a coffee, get cozy, and let's dive in. And if you love budget-friendly high-end home decor DIYs, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Let's get started. Starting this DIY with I think my favorite project of the three, and it will be this bunny print. I had found this bunny on Canva, and I had actually switched it to black and white, and I also cut off a part of his body, so just the head is in the frame. And then I picked up this canvas over at Dollarama. You can get them at Dollar Tree, I'm pretty sure, as well. I love using these because they have a really nice frame. It's not the best quality frame, but I love using it, and I have made so many different signs with it, and it seems to hold up throughout the seasons. I will be removing the canvas because I do want to expose the little wood frame. I'm just marking it off where I'm going to cut the canvas. I'm just using regular scissors, and as you can see, when I flipped the wood part, it actually has a really nice looking frame with a little bit of definition in it. So what you want to do is you want to cut the canvas around the marked section, so that way it fits, the frame fits right on top of it. You are going to flip it to where you're going to be adding the print on, so that way you're adding it on to the correct size. And I'm quite impressed that I actually cut it pretty close. Usually there's a flap overlapping, and this time it looked perfect. So I'm just going to mark off where it's kind of the frame's going, just so I know how to glue the print onto it, so that way I'm not covering any parts of the print with the frame. For attaching the print, you can use school glue. You can use really, I don't think I would use hot glue, but I ended up using Mod Podge because I wanted to add some on top of it as well. But you can totally just use school glue if you wanted to. And I'm cutting this because when I printed it, my printer left some sort of an ink mark on top of right above his head, so I just want to remove that. You could totally leave the whole piece as is and just glue that on, because you are gluing it just right on white, so it wouldn't really matter. But I cut it out. I didn't cut it like perfectly right up against the line, but I did cut it up, leaving a little bit of a white border around it, just so I wouldn't mess up. So I've never have luck with these Dollar Tree foam brushes. The bigger ones are okay, but these little ones, they're not a very good quality. There's too much empty space on top, so it has no structure to it. So whenever I'm applying paint or even glue, it just doesn't work. So I'm just switching out the brush and then applying a generous amount. You want to cover all the areas, so that way it goes on pretty nicely. I would also like to mention that today's video is part of a collaboration that's hosted by C from Siege DIY. It is a very large collaboration called Easter Around the World, and I encourage you to check out the playlist, which will be linked down below, as well as C's channel. I will have her channel linked down below to get tons and tons of spring and Easter DIY inspirations. Once I had it on a canvas, I added some Mod Podge over top of it as well. You should probably wait till this dries. I don't have such patience, and I just went ahead and did it right away. And then I proceeded on gluing the frame, and I am using hot glue to do that. You want to be careful that you put it right exactly where you want it to go. This tends to be sometimes an issue for me, and I mess up in this part as well, but I did take my time and made sure I put it exactly where I wanted it to go. And there you have it. I think this turned out so cute. I absolutely love the way he looks. You can find these prints where I live at Bouclair, and they are around $20-$30. Mine was about $2, and I love him. So here's the basket that I had thrifted for $3.99 at Value Village, and I'm just going to give it a very simple facelift, just here and there. I'm going to use two different paints, white chalk paint, and then I think I'm gonna go into like maybe either country gray or something along those lines, just to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to do it very, very lightly with the paint. I don't want it to saturate it, so almost like dry brush it. So I have my rag here to take some of the paint off, and I'm using Linen White by Rust-Oleum as my first paint. So as you saw, I only dipped my paint once. Now I'm going to go pick a different paint to layer it. So I'm going to use the Country Gray by Annie Sloan. I have not used this paint in a little while, so I just want to give it a good shake. And I'm just going to dab it on the lid and then take some off. Maybe it would be wise to remove the price tag. This should not take long to dry because I am brushing it on very lightly. Okay, so that's that. Now that the paint has dried, I will put this piece of burlap in it just to give it a bit more decor. And I think I'm gonna fringe some of this. Gonna do the same thing on this side. There we go. So see, it's nicely fringed on both sides. There we go. A nice little spring basket of flowers. And I'll show you what it looks like with my decor. So here it is. I love it, just right by my mantle. It looks like fresh cut flowers were brought in a basket. And I love the way it turned out. I love the lighter color that I've added to the basket versus the dark brown. The next project is a thrifted vase. So this is not necessarily an Easter project or spring project, but I will be using this vase to decorate my home with some tulips, and I thought it was fitting because of the spring decor that I'm going to be using it in. So I'm going to give this vase a coat of this charcoal gray paint. It's a chalk paint. I love painting with chalk paint because it usually you only need one coat. I did need to mix mine up a little bit because it was some of it settled, so it was very watery. So once I gave it a good stir, I was able to paint this with one coat. I picked up this vase for, I think it was $3 at Value Village a while back, and I particularly liked it because it had the grooves on it. And what I wanted to do with this vase, when I was looking for a vase, I wanted it to have grooves because of what I was planning on doing with it. So once you have fully covered your piece, like I said, it took me one generous coat to get that accomplished. I will be adding some dirt. I have some dirt that I put in the house, I think at fall, so now it has had a chance to dry pretty good. When I was using it for one of my fall projects, it was quite wet, but this time it was dry, and I'm going to, while it's wet, cover the whole piece, and then I'm going to let it completely dry before I move on to the next step. This type of DIY, I've seen so many of them over on Instagram, I think more so than on YouTube, just myself. And the vase is a high-end dupe for sure, because these type of vases at Pottery Barn or even is it Anthropology Home or Our House, I don't know if Our House has them, but anyways, they are quite expensive, in hundreds of dollars, and mine was $3, and I had all the supplies. So once it had completely dried, I'm just taking a brand new clean brush, and I am just brushing the vase completely, trying to get all that loose dirt off. I will also be taking a rag and just rubbing it off as well in some spots, just so it's rubbed off more in some spots, less in the other, just to give it a little bit of depth and definition, to give that rustic look. I love these type of makeovers. Like I said, I've made a couple of them, not necessarily with well, even with dirt, but I have made them with sand. I have made them with flour and cornstarch and all sorts of stuff, and I just think it just gives all the pieces that you're making over more of a rustic look. I especially love doing these type of projects with Christmas ornaments. I think that's one of my favorite things to do. So here it is, all done, and I absolutely love it. You could go one more step and spray it with the sealer. I might do it later. And then here it is with tulips, and I think it looks really nice. I'm going to be using it on my coffee table in my family room because I had a taller glass there with some flowers, and my husband continuously complained that he couldn't see the TV. So the shorter vase will have to be here from now on. In this video, I will be making a lemon wreath for my family room. I will be placing it above my fireplace, and I have picked, if you saw my Dollarama haul, I picked up those branches. They were, I think, $1.50, and then this garland came from Hobby Lobby, and it was $12.99 regular price, and then I used a 40% coupon on it. There are some lemons that are a mixture from Dollar Tree and Michael's. Some I had on hand, some are new, and then this wreath that I picked up at Michael's, and I used a 40% coupon. I think that was $5, I believe. So the first thing that I did with this wreath is I did not want it to glue the branches. Now, if you are putting this outside and there is wind and weather plays a role, I would glue these or tie them up. I just shoved them in here. So I took one branch and I had separated it and stuck all the branches all the way around. Once I was satisfied with the way the leaves looked, I have added the garland, and I am using the gardening wire to attach the garland on, and I picked that up at Dollarama as well. Once I went all the way around, I just spread it out, made sure it's not caught up with each on top of each other. This thing was really hard to work with. Then I placed my lemons the way I wanted wanted them to look, and I also ended up taking apart one of my lavender plants and adding the purple in it. I think it just made it look that much more nicer. And I am hot gluing the lemons and the lavender to the wreath because I don't know any other way that I could make it stay. Once it was dry, I just took that wire and made a little loop at the back so I can hang it up. Depending on what where you're hanging, you can add ribbon or whatever you want. I didn't want anything to show. So here it is above my fireplace. I hung it on top of the window, and I think it just looks fabulous. And the last project, I felt like I was doing arts and crafts project because I was assembling a bunny with all these random supplies. So I have a large Christmas ornament, and then I have a large egg that I actually had to go get from a friend of mine because the one egg that I had was too small that I originally intended to use. And then I have some aluminum foil. I will be using some sand, and I will be using some paint and hot glue. So I'm going to start off with hot gluing the ornament and egg together first, and then I'm going to add some smaller eggs as the feet, and then I'm going to work on the ears. So as you see, I am using the smaller part of the more rounder part of the egg for the feet. So once everything was assembled, I mixed up my paint. I'm just using white acrylic paint and I am adding sand to it. I did this type of a technique in fall with pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns for my front porch, and I absolutely loved it. And when I saw a lady do this type of thing on Instagram, I was completely inspired by it and ended up wanting to recreate the project. Now, if I had to do this one again, I would probably use a styrofoam egg as well as a styrofoam ball, just because I think this type of paint would have been a little bit easier to apply and it wouldn't dry so dry on the styrofoam. It did crack a little bit on me even after the second coat still. So I don't mind the look. I think it just gives it so much character. But if you want more of a non-cracked look, then I would definitely go with styrofoam, because I think styrofoam would absorb some of the paint as well and it wouldn't crack as easily as it did here. But I still love him. I think he looks really good. I think it's gonna be great as part of my home decor that I have right now. And speaking of home decor, if you guys haven't been checking out my home decorating that's been going on my home channel, I have it linked down in the description box. Please go ahead and check it out. I have tons of decorating inspiration, and the best part of it, most of the decor that I use is budget friendly, as well as a lot of the DIYs that I create on this channel. I do feature them on that one in my decorating, so I would love it if you check that out as well. And speaking of checking things out, don't forget to check out the playlist, which will be linked down below, to get tons and tons of Easter and spring DIY ideas. The collaboration is quite big. There are tons of very talented ladies in it. And like I said, the playlist will be linked down below, so make sure you check it out. I do love the way this guy is shaping up, and I love the way he turned out. He especially looks good sitting on my coffee table. I think he looks so rustic and different. Let me know if you guys are going to be trying any of these DIYs out. Don't forget to check out the playlist, and thank you so much for joining me on another DIY idea video. So until next time, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you all so much for watching. That pot, as you can see, it has tons of beautiful detailing on it, but it is very, very kind of run down and damaged and falling apart. So I am going to try and bring it back to life with some paint, some wax, and just, you know, try my best here. I absolutely love working on projects like these because this was destined for the garbage, and I am here to give it brand new life. and this was in a pretty rough shape. There was tons of loose stuff on it, so I took that same sandpaper that I just used on my other project and just sanded down some of these loose pieces, just so that way they don't interfere when I'm painting it. I'm not sure if somebody at some point was trying to fix this piece, because this brown, kind of grayish, it looked like it was in there. It looked like clay almost, and it was on there. It reminded me that something that you would do when you would try and glue pieces together. However, there was nothing on the inside to indicate that it was cracked, so I'm not quite sure what that was, or whether that was just a color that was underneath. Like I said, I am not sure. So once all of the loose pieces were sanded down, I proceeded to paint the whole piece with graphite. I gave it a fairly decent coverage. There were some areas that were showing because I just wanted them to show. I love using, obviously if you watch my channel, I absolutely love using chalk paint, especially for projects like these. Originally, before I actually saw exactly how textured this piece was, I was considering using, mixing up some baking soda paint and painting it with that, but this had so much texture on it that I did not, that would have been pointless. But if you would like to see me use some baking soda paint and what the look that it gives to a smooth surface, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to share. There are plenty of vases and pots that need some new life to them, given to them between my house and my mother-in-law's house, and we have been actually talking about redoing them all. She was considering just chucking them and buying all new ones, but I love redoing stuff like this, so I thought that the baking soda paint might do the trick for her. So like I said, let me know down in the comments if you would like to see that kind of video. I currently can't go to thrift stores. They're shut down because we are in lockdown. I live in Ontario, Canada, so shopping and my family members' garbages is what I've resorted to. So now that the piece was painted and drying, I mixed up my white acrylic paint and water, equal parts of white acrylic paint and water. Originally, I was going to use white wax on this project, but then I have changed my mind in the process of it, which happens often when I'm DIYing, and decided to do an acrylic whitewash on this piece. This is such an easy process, and it gives the pot such a unique and amazing look. And I will be using the sponge brush, 1-inch sponge brush, to apply the paint onto the piece, and you will also need a lint-free rag to wipe everything off. So just an FYI, you will go through several of these brushes because the surface is fairly rough, and as you're applying this paint, it tends to rough up the sponge and fall apart. So I'm dabbing instead of rubbing here because I'm trying to get it into all the crevices. I'm not doing this throughout the whole piece because there are areas where there's not that much detail. So in those areas, I just brush it on. But here I was just dabbing just to get into all the little nooks and crannies that this pot had. And you want to work in sections. You don't want to cover this whole area all at once because the paint will dry. So you want to pick sections and just work on that section until it's completely done. So once I'm finished applying the paint, I take the rag and I will wipe it off. So this is fair. The look that you end up with Totally depends on you. If you don't want so much white to show, you wipe it off more. If you want more of the white to show, you don't wipe it as much. I do like all the little nooks, crevices to have the white showing in them, so I'm not going as heavy on the wiping in those areas. And then when I move on to a little bit more of a design, like the little things that are popping out, I'd go a little bit more just to give it a little bit of a darker look, because the dark and then the white around it really looks good that way. But that's just me. Like I said, this can be, you can take this any way you want, like how much, it all depends on how much pressure you're putting and how much wiping you're actually doing. And if you want to get into those little crevices, I just kind of wrap it around my finger and push it in with my nail and wipe it down that way, the rag. Or you can even maybe take a little Q-tip and get in there to get as much white off as you want. Once I was finished with this pot, I did show it to my mother-in-law and she absolutely loved it, and that's how we came about talking about all the other pots and vases that she had that she wanted me to redo. So here it is, all on its own. I think it looks absolutely stunning, completely new look. I can't believe it is that ugly terracotta pot that it was. I'm sure at one time in its life it was beautiful, but it kind of ran its course. And I did decorate it just a little bit with some greenery just to show you what it would look like if you had a plant in there. Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. In this video I will be making a spring and summertime wreath that I will be putting up as part of my spring porch decor video, which I will link down below. And these are the supplies I will be using. I have two of these, the vine wreaths, wine. I think it's wine wreaths. Then I have garden twist ties, some glue sticks, glue gun, scissors, and lots of greenery. So I'm going to get started and I will show you my steps.
So why didn't you call? So many years has gone by, but I think about you all the time. Looks like you're changing and all, but why didn't you call? Something in the air, always something in the air. Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Do you miss me at all? Do you think about the things we used to do? No, you couldn't stand tall. So why didn't you call? So many years has gone by, but I think about you all the time. Looks like you're changing and all, but why didn't you call? Something in the air, always something in the air. Inexplicable, I can feel it in the air. Can you feel me? Can you feel me? Can you feel me?
About to leave, already packing.
So here is the finished product. I really like the way it turned out.
About to leave, already.
Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you some more outdoor DIYs. These are great for your patio decor, and they're made from dollar store as well as reclaimed some scrap wood materials. So my very first one, I have this pallet wood, because if you've been following along, I had picked up a van full of pallet wood for free from I found a place on Facebook Marketplace, and I am just working through it all. I think I have 2 or 3 more left. So for this one, I'm just keeping it together. I'm going to eventually get my husband to take the backing off just so I can screw it to the fence. I was hoping to show you this in this video, but unfortunately it's been raining for 2 days now, and it just didn't happen. So I sanded it down, and I'm just taking, it had some staples in it, so I'm taking those off just because I didn't want them there. And then using my Cricut machine, I have cut out a stencil kind of thing for it, and I just used the white shelf liner from the Dollar Tree to cut the stencil out. I didn't want it to use my good vinyl because I was going to be just taking it off and throwing it out. So if you're following along, you know I struggle with this, but it did work pretty good to weed it out and take everything off. So I'm just trying to figure out where exactly I want this stencil to go on, playing it around. So I had removed this frame on its own just so I know where I want it to go before I actually use transfer tape and transfer the whole stencil on. I wanted to know exactly where I wanted this to go. I also wanted to let you know that this video is part of a challenge, a Craft Your Stash challenge. It's an open invite. It's hosted by Antoinette from Simple Yet Chic, and this is her monthly challenge. And the theme for this one was DIY summer indoor and outdoor decor. So obviously, I will be creating all of mine for outdoor. You could probably use some indoor as well, but it is a summer decor. I will have Antoinette's channel linked down below, as well as the playlist for you to check out after you are done watching my video. And this challenge is also very appropriate for this Craft Your Stash, because I do live in Ontario and currently all of our stores are essentials only, so I am running really short on some of the supplies. So I am thinking outside the box and trying to use up all the things that I have at home, which is kind of a good thing as well, just to get through all the materials. But I did needed a clear coat for this to keep it outside, and I did not have it. So, and Home Depot currently, the curbside pickup is not a good thing. It takes forever, so I will be putting in clear coat once the stores open up. So here is the stencil on, and now I'm going to proceed to apply my stain, but you want to make sure that there's no bubbles in the stencil so the stain leaks through. I am using up my Old Masters stain in Spanish oak. I'm at the very end of it. It's had to peel a layer of dry stuff off of it, but I had enough for today's projects, which was great. So I'm using a foam brush as well as a rag just to spread it out. Foam brush to apply the stain and then a rag to spread it out. And then I remove the stencil, revealing the natural wood color underneath. I absolutely love that the way that this turned out. It looks amazing, in my opinion, and I think it's going to look fabulous on my deck. But like I said, I will be applying a clear coat on it just to protect it from the weather elements outside, because I won't be taking it off during the winter if I screw it onto the fence. My fourth project and my last one, I am creating another pillow, and I am using a burlap. I had picked up this burlap roll at Michael's for, I don't even remember how much it was. I think it was around $10-15. I had a table runner out of it, did several DIYs already, and I still have quite a bit left. So I wanted the size of this pillow to be about 12 by 12 so it fits, because I'm gonna be creating a design. I actually created a design on Canva and added it to my design space on a Cricut, because for Mother's Day I got an easy press, and this was the first time using it. And you guys, I tell you, I hope the Cricut machine and all the Cricut things aren't like sewing for me, because it's taking me a while to get a hang of it. But anyways, so I again proceeded to hot gluing all three sides, leaving one open, and then I moved on to the floor because the table's a little bouncy, and it said you need to have a solid surface for the transfer. So I'm actually going to leave a link to the transfer that I created. I have it over on my Etsy shop. If you did not know, I recently opened up an Etsy shop, and I am just having some SVG files on there that I've created that I'm sharing with you, and they are a download and for minimal cost. You'll see I don't charge much for them. So if you want this transfer, it will be linked in the description box. So the first one I made, I realized I cut out the wrong side. So it has to be shiny side down. I did the shiny side up. Then I went and I did it the second time, but I had forgot to turn on the mirror, a mirrored image. So the third time was the charm, and I got it the right way. So I'm just placing some parchment paper. I read a couple blogs that say to use the parchment paper. I don't know if it actually did anything, so I'm try to do it both ways. So once the heat image, and I'm doing it at 300 because it's set for burlap to use 300. I think it's Fahrenheit, and then no, it's Celsius. Sorry. And then I'm just checking to see whether the image is transferring. If not, I go back and hold it on it again. So once the image had transferred, I just finish it off just the exact same way as I did the other pillow. So I'm not taking you through that whole process again. So yeah, I think this turned out really cute. We have a nice, really big fire pit. That's our thing in a backyard, and I think this is gonna look really great on my Muskoka chair. Obviously, I'm not gonna be leaving this pillow out all the time throughout like rain and winter. It will be just for decor, to decorate the yard, but I think it's gonna last project that I'm working on. I got these pieces of wood in a bag of kindling that in the firewood order that we made, and I thought they would be great to make something out of them because they were pretty nice looking. So I have 4 long ones, and then I have cut 2 of them into the smaller pieces just to make a border around, and then I have 1 flat piece that will be my bottom, and this is how I'm going to glue them on. I do not have measurements because it doesn't really matter what the measurements are. If you have pieces of wood, you can make your lanterns as big as you want. You just have to measure the inside because I'm making a little border on the inside, so I had cut ones to fit inside, and then I also cut ones on top to make a border on top. And like I said, I'm using hot glue. Now I did not paint these or stain them. You totally could. You could also just put some weather stripping on, like a weather resistant stain on, which is what I'm thinking I might do. I do not have any on hand at the moment, but I really like the way how rustic these look just as they are, and I am planning on using them on my deck. So once the stores open up, I will most likely go and get just a clear coat to put on for weather resisting, so in case if it rains, so it doesn't fall apart. I will probably end up screwing these as well at that time just to keep them a little bit in place. But if I was using them on the inside, I probably would not be doing any of that. I would just leave them as they are. So once I was done with completely assembling them, I end up adding a piece of rope to the top as well. I just love how rustic these lanterns look, and I think they're gonna look great with the little tea light candles from... We are kicking things off with the McGee and Co dupe, and I am recreating their beautiful scalloped marble bowl without the hefty price tag. Obviously, I won't be using real marble, but I found a way to achieve a high-end look on a budget using air-dry clay from Dollarama. To shape my bowl, I'm using a taco shell mold. You might remember this from a previous DIY where I tried making a concrete bowl, which wasn't my most successful project. This time we're getting it right. To prep your mold, if your bowl isn't already oiled, you want to spray it with cooking spray, apply a thin layer of Vaseline, or use plastic wrap so the clay doesn't stick. Next, I'm going to roll out my clay and I warmed it up. You want to warm it up with your hands first to make it easier to work with, then using rolling pin to flatten it. When flattening it, make sure it's not too thin to prevent cracking, especially around the edges. Next, I'm draping the clay over the mold and trimming it to size. Once I'm happy with the size, I'm using my wet fingers to smooth out any rough edges for the soft handcrafted look. Now, slow drying is the key. To prevent cracking, I'm covering it with a damp tea towel and letting it dry for 48 hours. I removed the tea towel halfway through and took out the mold so the bowl could dry evenly. Once fully dry, my clay bowl had a light gray tone, which looked beautiful, but since I was trying to dupe the marble bowl, I wanted to have a closer look to my inspiration, so I gave it a coat of paint. To finish, I applied a dishwasher safe Mod Podge, which added a subtle sheen and gave it a more realistic finish. So what do you guys think? Would you try this DIY? Let me know in the comments. For my next DIY, I picked up another $5 bunny from Dollarama, since you guys enjoyed my last bunny makeover. And my inspiration came from Pottery Barn's handcrafted terracotta bunny sculpture. Their versions are absolutely stunning, but also expensive. So I'm starting with a base coat of white acrylic paint. I found mine at Dollar Tree. I only did one coat because I wanted to let the natural texture of the bunny show through. This gave it a sculpted look. If your bunny doesn't have much texture, you can mix in cornstarch, sand, or even plaster of Paris into your paint to create that aged terracotta finish. Once the paint dried completely, I aged it using coffee grounds. I gently rubbed them into the bunny, focusing on the crevices to enhance all those beautiful details. To finish, I used a clean brush to blend and soften the effect. You can also use a dry cloth to wipe off excess coffee for a more subtle look. I love how this turned out. It looks so high-end and vintage. Let me know in the comments if you tried this technique. You've probably seen these bunny topiaries all over the internet. They're gorgeous, but they come with a hefty price tag. Hobby Lobby sells them for around $100, given you can use a 40% coupon, which will still be around $60, and Walmart isn't far behind. But today we're making one for a fraction of the cost using Dollar Tree supplies. First, I'm going to build my bunny shaped. I used two different size clear plastic bowls and filled the larger one with Dollar Tree rocks to weigh it down since I'll be using mine outdoor. I layered the glue and the rocks until I used up all my rocks, and then I finished off with a layer of the glue on top. If you want extra durability, use E6000 or Gorilla Glue instead of just hot glue gun. Once all the rocks were in, I had glued the other large bowl over on the top of it, and then I went in with more glue just around the edging where they meet. I glued the smaller balls together, and then I glued the smaller bowl to the top, making sure everything was lined up. And then I added bunny ear. I repurposed them from a previous DIY, but you can also use Dollar Tree bunny headbands or bend floral wire into shape. Speaking of using variety of supplies to make this bunny can be made a few different ways. You can use different size of those styrofoam bowls. Balls. You can only use one set of bigger bowls and just go with that. I mean, there are so many different ways you can make this. Next step is to cover the whole thing with moss. I use green floral moss from Dollarama because Dollar Tree only had the brown toned version, but they were all $1.75. Remember, I'm in Canada. I started at the top and worked my way down, gluing small sections at a time for the most natural look. With everything that I used except the bunny ears, it had cost me $1.75. So my total cost for this was $19 and I think 25 cents. And if I incorporate the glue sticks that I use, I made this for around $20. I used 7 bags of the green moss to cover the whole bunny. The last area I was doing putting green floral moss was the ears. Once I was done, I wanted to seal it, so I used a spray. You want to seal it with some sort of a spray adhesive. I used hairspray, but a spray glue would work just as fine. This prevents shedding, especially if you're using it outdoors. Now to finish it, I did tie a simple ribbon around its neck for an extra touch of charm. The ribbon I picked up at Dollar Tree a few years ago. I love how this turned out. Do you think I should place it in a wicker basket, like my inspiration here? Or let me know in the comments. Or do you think I should do in more of a terracotta pot or some sort of a planter? Let me know in the comments. Remaking this thrifted wreath that I picked up for $3.99 in Value Village. I really like the form of it, the twigs, but I do not love the florals or the ribbon that's on it, so I will be removing that. This video is part of a collab hosted by Sandra from the Schwoman's Nest, and there will be a playlist with several ladies joining in, so make sure you check out the playlist as well as Sandra's channel, which I will have everything linked in the description box. So for this wreath, I will be using the Pussy Willows that I had picked up at Dollarama, and I think they were $1.50. And I will be cutting them up and hot gluing them. So I obviously need a hot glue, and then you need some sort of shears to cut the wire off from the Pussy Willows. So without further ado, I'm going to start assembling the wreath. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take apart the Pussy Willows. Actually, before I take apart my Pussy Willows, I will be taking off all of this greenery and ribbon that's glued onto this wreath. I think I'm going to keep these roses for other project. I will be cutting off and making these fairly long before I obviously hot glue them. I will be putting them in a circular pattern, just going and following the pattern all around. And I just attach a little bit of glue at the end and then stick them in. So I have decided to maybe add a little bit of these white branches, decorative branches that I picked up at Dollarama as well, just to add a little bit of a different texture to the wreath, and I'm doing them in the same pattern. So after several hours, I was looking at it. I wasn't really happy with the way it worked out, so I ended up snipping the really long ones, and I'm going to reattach them so I make it more thicker rather than wider. So I'll show you what that looks like once I'm done doing that. So here it is, all done. And I like it much better with the shorter branches. Our first project is a Pottery Barn inspired forsythia wreath. This bright and cheerful piece is perfect for spring, bringing a pop of yellow to your front door or interior decor. Instead of paying retail prices, I'm going to show you how to make a stunning version using affordable materials. The materials that I needed for this was the bunny wreath form from Dollarama, which I picked up for $5. Also, forsythia stems, they are currently at Dollarama for $1.75. I had some from previous years. You're going to need some wire cutters, hot glue and glue sticks, floral wire, which is optional for extra support. So first, this wreath form was actually wrapped in a wire, and which I hadn't realized when I first bought it. To separate it, I used wire cutters to carefully snip away extra wire and remove the bunny shape, leaving just a circular base. I had a mix of older and newer forsythia stem, and I noticed that the newer ones had slightly larger flowers and were more open. I will show you that in just a little bit. I cut the long stems down into smaller branch-like pieces to create a fuller, more natural look. I started by attaching two longer forsythia stems to the wreath base first and secure them with small piece of cut wire and a bit of hot glue. This created a strong foundation. Then one by one, I inserted the smaller forsythia branches into the frame, making sure to distribute them evenly around the wreath. Some pieces stayed in place on their own, while others needed a dab of hot glue to ensure they were secure. Here is the difference between the new forsythia and the old one. I checked for any sparse areas and filled them in with extra stems. Once finished, I hung it up on my home sign at the front door, and I absolutely love how it brightens up the space. My DIY cost around $8 in total, and compared to Pottery Barn's $41 price tag. Next, we're making a vase inspired by McGee and Co.'s Loeffler Randall Tabitha vase, which retails around $62. I found a similar shaped vase at Dollarama for just $3, and we're going to give the designer look with paint. So for this, you will need a glass vase. Like I said, I picked up mine for $3 at Dollarama. I also used suede paint in olive by Decor, a little bit of plaster, which I will show you what I'm using it for at the end, and of course you're going to need a paintbrush, and that's it. So since glass is smooth and doesn't absorb paint well, I applied 2 full coats of this Decor suede paint. This paint has a slightly grainy texture which helps mimic the subtle texture of the McGee and Co vase. I did wait fully between the coats for it to dry fully in between the coats. And for the third coat, I mixed a tiny amount of plaster into the paint. This helped thicken it and provided a full coverage, ensuring no light would shine through the vase. I avoided painting the entire inside, but did coat the rim for a finished look. Once dried, the vase had the perfect smooth yet textured finish, very similar to the high-end version. My final cost was under $4 compared to $62 retail. Next, for our third DIY, we are making high-end speckled Easter eggs inspired by McGee and Co. Their set of 3 eggs costs $28, but I'll show you how to make them for less than $5. I picked up these plastic eggs at Dollarama for $3.50, and I also got some chalk paint in sea blue, ice cappuccino, and moss green, and I also have an acrylic paint in black. And you will need paintbrush, and you can also use a toothbrush if you would like. So I painted each egg with a different color. First, I started with a speckled effect, and to achieve that signature speckled look, I dipped a brush, and this is the part where you can use an old toothbrush, into black paint and slightly flicked it over the eggs. Be careful, paint splatter can go everywhere. Then I painted my next one with the sea blue chalk paint, making sure that the brush strokes are visible to mimic the effect on the eggs from McGee and Co. The third egg, I painted a nice cappuccino using the same technique. And then the last egg, I mixed my sea blue with a little bit of moss green and a little bit of black for a custom paint color. I love how these turned out. They are quite large eggs, and I can't wait to style them in my Easter decor. For our last project, we're making a concrete style bunny inspired by Pottery Barn's cast stone rabbit, which retails for over $50. I picked up this Dollarama rabbit for $3.75. I'm also going to use black and white acrylic paint, some antiquing wax, and a little bit of olive green suede paint that we used in our first project, and then a paintbrush and a rag. Since I didn't have gray paint, I mixed black and white acrylic until I achieved the right shade of gray. I painted the whole rabbit, making sure I got into all the little nooks and crannies of the rabbit. The eyes on this rabbit always freak me out a little bit, so I like to cover them as well. Once I painted it, I did take a rag and just dabbed it all over just to um, almost blend the paint in a little bit. Did take the paint off the eyes, so I did have to touch them up. Once the bunny completely dried, I mixed white antiquing wax with a bit of that olive green color to create a mossy patina. I lightly brushed it all over the bunny, making sure it settled into the crevices. Then I took another brush and blended the wax to ensure a natural look. And the total cost of mine was around $5 compared to Pottery Barn's over 50, I think it was $69. And I also just want to give you a little tip. If you're shopping at Dollarama, make sure you check your bunny prices because there were when I was looking at them, I picked up two same rabbits, and one was priced at $3.50 and the other one was priced at $5. I have a feeling that one was from last year's stock and then the other one was this year's stock, so the prices must have gone up, but they had forgot to switch the price tags. So make sure you check your prices because there's no reason to pay more if you don't have to. I love how this bunny turned out. I think he looks absolutely adorable. Obviously, I'm not going to be using mine in the garden, but he will look just fabulous on my shelf or on my coffee table. For my first project, I'm going to be using this bowl that I picked up at Dollar Tree from their Valentine's section for $1.50. And we're going to be recreating this white marble ruffle bowl from our house at $269 on sale. I obviously am not willing to spend that kind of money, and I'm okay if my bowl is plastic as long as it's stylish looking. I'm not planning on putting any food in here, so I'm good to go with plastic and acrylic paint. So I gave this bowl 2 coats of white paint. You want to give some time in between to dry. You could also buy a glossier white spray paint, and that will give you a bit of the shine like the marble paint, like marble bowls have or marble has. Or you could also spray it with a glossy finish if you want that bit of a shine on it. I was okay with the white dull paint. I quite prefer that look. So I just left mine as is after the second coat had dried. Once I was done painting the second coat, I did let it dry again. And then I went ahead and got some of my craft sponges and my dark wax. You could also water down some brown paint and do this as well. It's all about blending here. So I wanted my brushes to be wet, so it's a little bit easier to blend it up. And I also put some of this wax on a piece of wood. I just had some garden stakes that were all broken up, so I just used that, but you could also use popsicle stick if you really wanted to, just so that way I'm not dipping the wet sponges into the wax directly. So this is antiquing wax, not as a finishing wax, and I just went very lightly on just different areas, because the bowl that from our house does have a bit of a yellowish staining at the bottom, so I wanted to recreate that. You totally don't have to do this. You can recreate it, create whatever you like. You could also add some lines if you wanted to, or like I said, just leave it as is. So this, I took the wax, put it on, and then I flipped the sponge and just use the wet part to kind of blend it in. And then on the areas where I went a little bit heavier, and I ended up adding a little bit of paint, white paint, just to, like I said, just to blend it all in. I love these kind of projects where you can just put your own touches on, and no matter what, every single one of them will turn out differently. I think this is going to look great with some Easter eggs or some spring, even some spring flowers in there. I can't wait to use it. So the next project, I'm going to be making some Easter eggs. I love these moss eggs that I saw at Pottery Barn, but they are 19 for set of 6, which isn't overly pricey, but I had all of the supplies on hand, so I figured I will recreate. I did make only 3 of them, but a package of eggs at Dollar Tree cost me $1.50, and the moss was free because I had it on hand. But you can totally get a package at Dollarama and Dollar Tree, depending on which one you're looking for from anywhere from $1.50 to $3, and you are not going to use the whole package, even on the 6 eggs. Well, you might, for 6 eggs, you might use a whole package. So I glued these together, and then I ended up doing 2 different ones because I had 2 different styles of moss, and I just wanted to see how the 2 different mosses will look on the eggs. This is very hard to do without burning yourself. So if you have some protective covers and you can handle wearing gloves while you do this, I highly recommend it. Otherwise, be prepared, you will burn your fingers. So I believe the first moss that I'm going to be working with is called a deer moss, and I was just trying to scrape off a little bit of the dirt from behind it, just so it's a little bit thinner, not as thick. You don't have to do this. Your eggs will be much larger than once they are finished, which is okay. And then once I had all this moss on there and it was nicely pressed in, and I gave the egg a little haircut just to kind of loosen up some of the flyaways that were on top of the egg. Now then I proceeded on putting this type of moss. I'm not sure what this one's called, and I wasn't an overly huge fan of this one. I thought the other one worked a little bit better, but I thought I'd show you both, and you decide which one you would like to use if you decide to recreate this project. I think these eggs will go really well with my decor, as is very earthy and natural decor that I use in my house. If you haven't seen how I decorate my house, make sure you head on over to my home channel, and here it is in that bowl that I created. I think this looks really nice, and like I said, perfect for my decor. Now moving on, we're going back to our house, and I have had this. It was a DIY a while back that I created. It's just a small terracotta pot with a tray and a candle holder. Both came from Dollar Tree, both $3, and we're going to be recreating this Santorini candlesticks that was $49. So this is very simple DIY. Again, just like the bowl, you can spray paint this if you want. I thought I had white spray paint, turns out I didn't, so I ended up using the same acrylic paint and painted the candlestick with that, 2 coats. But first I had glued it together. You can also use a E6000 or more permanent, like a Gorilla Glue, that instead of hot glue, if you wanted it to be more of a permanent or less of a chance of breaking it. I'm taking my chances, and I just used the hot glue primarily because my Gorilla Glue dried out. So again, I gave this candlestick 2 coats, and you just want an even full coverage on it. You can spray it at this point or leave it as is, and here it is with a candle, and I think this turned out so nice and so close to the original, the inspirational piece, and for $3. And the last piece, this one I kind of decided on a whim to do, is a little ring or napkin ring for your Easter table setting. I saw these at Pottery Barn, and I thought they were so cute. But as you can see, the price of them was not so cute at set of 4 for $56. So I had similar ribbon on hand, so I thought this would work well. So I took some of this wire, cut out 2 pieces, bent it in the shape of an ear, and then I had hot glued. Once I had bent them, I did hot glue them to the ring, and the ring is actually a bath shower curtain ring. I have several of these on hand for the purpose of creating the napkin rings. So I hot glued this. You want to give it a little bit of time so it sets, so that way you don't have a problem with it moving too much when you are wrapping it with ribbon. So for the ring, I did use ribbon as well as just some kitchen twine. So once it had a little bit of time to set the glue, I ended up wrapping the ribbon onto the ear. You could go the other way. I would just make the ears a touch smaller, so that way you can cover it with the width of the ribbon. And then I repeat the same process on the other ear. I do trim off the excess ribbon first on the bottom, and then once the glue had set on both of them, I do trim it around the wire as well, just to shape the ear a little bit better. This does turn out looking a little different, but definitely the idea was there. I was even debating taking the twine and just wrapping it around the ear as well, which is another option if you don't have this type of ribbon. I had this on hand, so I wanted to use it, as it's a bit of a awkward ribbon to use, as it doesn't shape very well. So I was glad that I figured out a project that I can use it on. So once that was on, I went ahead with the twine and just wrapped it around. First, I wrapped it a little bit around the ear just to smooth out, so you don't see the cuts of where I cut the ribbon off. And I'm not putting hot glue everywhere, just in certain spots, so that way it just stays in place. So I would wrap it a couple rows, and then I would put a little bit of hot glue, and then wrap some more, and then a little bit of hot glue, so that way you have somewhere to hold and you're not burning your fingers all the way through, and it does keep things in place. So I will be making 4 of these. I did here just to show you how I'm going to be making it, but I will be creating 4 of these just for our table setting. And several weeks ago, I did share quite a bit of table setting stuff that I did, dupes that I've created from Pottery Barn, and I'm excited to use those during Easter festivities, as I absolutely love the placemats as well as the napkins. I'm gonna show you here with a different type of napkin, just so I can show you how the white looks against colored, but I am contemplating using my natural linen ones instead. So here is the napkin ring, and I think it turned out so cute. Well, this concludes my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks for watching. For my first DIY, I braved the snowy weather to head outside and find the perfect large branch to create a fall silver dollar eucalyptus tree. This is a crate and barrel dupe, and I wanted it to be around 8 feet tall. And luckily, I found a suitable one near my neighbor's house, who also happens to be my mother-in-law. So I had permission to cut it down. Using a small handheld chainsaw, I cut the branch and brought it inside. To create the base, I picked up a flower pot from Dollarama for $4 and a bag of concrete from Home Depot. The concrete I chose had a pebbly texture, which worked well for this project. If you need a smoother finish for a different DIY, you might want to choose a finer mix. And here is what the branch looks like that I decided for this project. I mixed equal parts of water and concrete, stirring it until fully combined. This took a bit of effort, but it wasn't difficult, just a bit of a workout. Once the concrete was ready, I placed my tree branch into the pot. You can mix the concrete separately and then pour it into the pot, but I found it easier to mix everything directly in the planter. For stability, I had my husband hold the branch upright while I secured it with wooden supports and heavy objects on top to prevent it from tipping. It took about an hour for the concrete to set. One set, I headed back to Dollarama and I picked up silver dollar eucalyptus branches for $3 each. Initially, I bought 11, but after reassessing, I went back and purchased 7 more. I trimmed each eucalyptus branch into smaller pieces and hot glued them onto my tree branch. Another option would be drilling small holes into the branch and inserting the stems, but I found hot glue to be a quicker and easier method. The original inspiration tree was priced at $600 from Crate and Barrel. My version came in just under $60, a huge savings. Once the leaves were attached, I made a few final trims for a more balanced look. Also felt that the middle needed a bit more filling up with branches. And here it is, all filled up and trimmed up, and I love how it looks. I placed my tree in a wicker basket I already had, similar to the inspiration piece. To the basket, I am also going to add some burlap. You can add some rocks and deer moss or any type of filler that you think would look good. I love how it turned out. It makes such a statement in my front entryway for a fraction of the price. For my next DIY, I thrifted 2 tortilla bowls for $2.79 total. I planned to use cement and Vaseline for a high-end aged look. And here is the bowl that is my inspiration piece. My shape is obviously going to look a little different, but I love the way this one looks. First, I mixed equal parts of cement and water until smooth. Before pouring, I applied Vaseline inside one bowl and on the exterior of the second. This trick ensures the cement releases easily once set. I poured the mixture into the first bowl and pressed the second bowl into it, adding weight on top to keep it in place. After letting it set for 24 hours, I removed the top bowl, but the cement was still damp. I allowed it to dry another full day before unmolding it completely. It wasn't 100% dry yet, but I decided to move forward with painting. I took some paper towel and just wiped off any extra Vaseline that was on here. And here you can really see that it did need a little bit more drying. And also when I was rubbing it, it was rubbing off a little bit of the cement off, which I thought was fine because it was just giving it more of that aged look. For a rustic aged effect, I used a wet paper towel dabbing technique with black, brown, and white paint, layering the colors to create depth. Once finished, I flipped it over and painted the inside as well. Unfortunately, disaster struck. While moving the bowl, I tripped over an object behind me. And here is the object. Knocking it against the counter and it shattered. Even though this one didn't survive, I wanted to share the process because not every DIY goes perfectly. The good news, I can always make another one. For my final DIY, I picked up a $5 pot from Dollarama and decided to give it an old world stone effect using joint compound. This is another Olive Atelier inspiration, and here are the two pots that kind of gave me an idea on the texture and the direction that I wanted this pot to go. Wearing gloves, I applied joint compound directly to the pot, creating organic texture by spreading it in different directions. I made sure to cover at least a quarter of the interiors inside, since some of it will be visible, depending on what's placed inside. Once the compound dried, I lightly sanded off any rough or overly thick areas. Next, I searched my basement for paint and I found a mystery shade I don't recall purchasing, but it turned out to be perfect. I used it as a base color and I painted the whole thing. And then I went in and layered Cocoa Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and also I mixed the Cocoa Rust-Oleum chalk paint with some of that base color to add dimensions. Using a wet rag, I blended the darker and lighter tones, adjusting until I achieved the aged stone look I wanted. If one color felt too overpowering, I simply went back in with the base shade to tone it down. The final result, absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, it turned out to be too short for my eucalyptus tree, so I'll be on the lookout for a taller planter. But I know I'll find a perfect spot for this one. West Elm, which is a sister company to Pottery Barn under Williams Sonoma, sell these adorable bunny statues, and I fell in love with them. The middle-sized bunny retails for $68, but we're making ours for just a few dollars. I picked up this wood bunny from Dollarama for $3 and decided to customize it to achieve that similar high-end look. I experimented with different stains, special walnut and old American, and settled on using my gel stain, which was a bit dry but still usable. The wooden bunny absorbed a lot of stain I was applying with the rag and making some areas darker than I wanted. So I proceeded on dabbing some of that stain off and then rubbing it onto the bunny for the lesser stain effect. So after the bunny was done, I was still a little bit unhappy with how dark some of the areas were. So to fix this, I applied some white wax to lighten it up. Although the final result wasn't exactly what I had envisioned, I think it has a beautiful vintage feel and I might go and grab another bunny to experiment further. This is another easy dupe and is such an easy way to bring in some subtle seasonal decor. For the first project, I'm starting with a planter transformation. I picked up a pre-mixed can of beige brown paint at a discount because it was a mist tint, such a great way to find high quality paint for cheap. I also found a planter with an attached saucer at the thrift store, which became the perfect base for this DIY. Inspired by Pottery Barn's small decorative pots, I wanted to add texture and character to make it look like an aged clay or a stone planter. To achieve this, I mixed plaster of Paris into my paint and applied 2 coats for depth and texture. I love how the brushstrokes soften the look while adding dimension. I plan to use this for fresh basil since I cook with it multiple times a week. Since I also painted the inside, I'll keep the plant in its original container for food safety. If you try this, you can also use terracotta pots and paint them along with their saucers. This DIY proves you don't have to spend a lot to get the high-end look you love. And here it is. I just added a faux plant to it because I did forget to pick up the basil when I went to the grocery store. So you'll just have to check it out on my home channel to see how it looks with basil if you want to see that. Moving on to the next project, a vintage inspired gold frame. I had this 5x7 inch frame with this 4x6 opening from Dollar Tree that cost me around $1.25. That was before the prices went up to $1.50. To transform it, I use my favorite metallic gold spray paint, which I also love to use during the holidays. Once the base coat dried, I layered sponge dabbed accents using spun gold, frosted cappuccino, yellow gold, and a touch of black. This layering technique creates a rich aged gold look similar to what you see on Etsy and in high-end decor stores. I'm going to go in again with the same colors but adjust the balance slightly, applying a bit more of the one over the other. I want to achieve that vintage gold look, so I'm being careful not to add too much black or frosted cappuccino. The second time around, I use more gold while still allowing some of the black to show through. Once dry, I framed a print that I'll be sharing in the description box. These types of frames are sold at all the high-end stores and on Etsy for a much higher price, with prints in them, and I wanted something simple, so I was able to create mine for a very little cost. For an authentic oil painting effect, you could also use Mod Podge, a trick I've shared in past videos. But for this small frame, I kept it simple, letting the gold tones and vintage-inspired artwork shine. Next up, a high-end watering can dupe. Designer-style watering cans can cost upwards of $15 to $30, but I created mine for just $3. I found a budget-friendly watering can at a Dollarama, and I gave it a metallic gold spray paint base. And then I went in and added yellow, gold, spun gold, and black for depth. I used a similar technique to the frame by dabbing the paint and using a craft sponge to create an antique, slightly distressed look. The final result, a vintage inspired piece perfect for styling in home decor or an indoor garden setup. For the last project, I transformed a thrifted wooden shelf that my friend found for me for $7.99. It was the perfect size, but I wanted it to match my kitchen island. I ended up sanding off some of the finish, just a clear coat. I wasn't aiming for perfection since I was going to be painting it anyway. I just wanted to rough it up a little bit. I used a hand sander with 220 grit sandpaper that had been used several times, so it wasn't too aggressive, but it still did the job I needed. There are many places where you can find small shelves at different price points. I even found one similar to mine but larger on Etsy for a lot more than what I paid. If you're looking for a piece, just be patient. The right one is out there and you just need to find it. Once everything was sanded down, I brought it inside and used the same paper that I picked up at Dollar Tree. Uh, to get in all the little nooks and crannies that the sander couldn't reach, especially underneath the small hanging parts. This step took a little longer since it was difficult to get in all the tight spaces by hand. Once I was done, I wiped everything down with a damp paper towel. Once prepped, I mixed up my beige brown paint. To prevent yellowing, I followed a trick I've seen in other DIY videos, adding a tiny bit of blue paint to balance out warm tones. I applied the paint with a sponge brush, wiping off excess with a lint-free rag to create a soft, natural finish. I worked by sections so that way the paint did not dry on me. If it happens that you are working on a larger section, just make sure you have a bottle of spray bottle with some water in it so you can keep your paint wet. Once I completed that and the shelf dried, which didn't take long at all, I took some of my Annie Sloan antiquing wax in dark and applied it with a brush. The brush I used was similar to stippling brush, and I worked in very small amounts at a time, brushing it out as I went. This darkened the paint slightly and really brought out all the grooves and wood grain which I love. After applying the wax with the brush, I buffed it out slightly with the rag. You don't need to fully buff the antiquing wax, you can simply wipe off the excess. In my case, I wouldn't say I buffed it out completely, but I did make sure to wipe it well after applying it with the brush to even everything out. Initially, it looked slightly greenish, but as it dried, it settled into a warm, rich tone that matched my island perfectly. Here is how the shelf looks now, and you can see some of the pieces I already added to it. I think it turned out absolutely beautiful and matches my island perfectly, just the way I envisioned it. It's a great addition to this little space which had been sitting empty and was really bothering me. Now, not only does it add a decorative touch, but it also brings in some functionality. This corner gets a lot of beautiful morning sunlight, so I thought it would be the perfect spot for a little herb garden. Here is how I styled it for now. I added my DIY flower pot with some fall herbs until I get fresh ones, my DIY picture frame with the DIY bunny from last week, and a little hanging basket with garlic. The basket came from Temu. And I also included a simple kitchen dish towel along with the watering can. I absolutely love how this shelf turned out and how much purpose it brings to this space. It not only fills the empty corner beautifully, but also adds warmth and charm to my kitchen. And that's it for today's gorgeous high-end DIY decor. I hope these ideas inspire you to create budget-friendly pieces that look like they came from a designer store. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new DIY. See you in the next one. Happy crafting!